Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with me today. My name's Jess. I'm your host of the Learning to Glow podcast, and I am so excited for this episode. We have returning guest Carol Look, who is a psychotherapist, an EFT master, and an author who has truly transformed the way so many people and her clients approach healing. We dive deep into the power of EFT, also known as tapping, and how this simple but powerful technique can help clear emotional blocks, lower stress, and support overall well-being. I'm going to make sure to link the last podcast that she came on because we do more of a 101 on EFT in that episode. And today, in this episode, Carol's sharing some of the really incredible benefits of practicing gratitude alongside tapping, and it is so fascinating. This was like such a good episode. I hope you guys love this one as much as I do. I mean, we're talking like benefits like physically lowering cortisol, improving your sleep, real amazing issues the issues aren't amazing, but the solution is amazing. The fact that we can actually see such a big difference from incorporating some of the things that she's talking about in this episode. She does have a new book, and we talk about that. It's called Yes, Thank You, Tapping into the Superpower of Gratitude. And we talk about combining tapping with gratitude and how it can shift your mindset, how you can start with small practices that create change. So she also talks about a 30-day gratitude challenge that's in the book, which I am really excited to get and do. I've been talking about online doing challenges and why I think they're so helpful. And EFT is something that I started to incorporate into my morning routine, and it can be super quick. You can do guided ones. It's not complicated. You don't have to memorize the points, but the points don't take long to get the hang of. But this is really good. If you are struggling with anything, like she talks about all the different things that tapping can address, this is an episode for you. So make sure that you go to the link in my bio in the show notes and just look at where you can find Carol, the link to her book. And this is a great conversation. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. Let me know what you think. And thanks again for being here. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our show. Today we have a returning guest, Carol Look. Welcome to Learning to Glow.
Thank you, Jess. Happy to be here.
I'm so happy to see you. Before we get started, you're a psychotherapist, you're an EFT master, you're an author, and you are wonderful because you have been on the show before, and we talked all about tapping, and it was such an impactful episode for me personally. I've been tapping ever since, and I'll make sure to link that episode in the show notes. So if you haven't heard from Carol yet, go back and listen to that one as well after this. But I'm going to have you introduce yourself, and then I want to do like maybe a little refresher for those who don't know what tapping is, and then we'll get into like some other really great topics today as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for having me here. I loved our conversation last time too. I started as a traditional psychotherapist, got into hypnotherapy. Someone in my hypnosis class said, if you think that's fun, you got to try this weird new tapping technique. And the rest is history. I took my first courses. I trained with the head person who created it, became an EFT master. And that's what I mostly use in my practice now, even though I have traditional psychotherapy background, because the results are so fast. And you really get to what's bothering you, what's bothering the nervous system. And once you take care of the nervous system, everything you interact with changes, including your immune system, right? So your immune system, your relationships, your how you are at work, whether you're an entrepreneur or have a boss, how you are with your kids. So it's one of those techniques. The tapping is one of those techniques that can help literally, and it certainly did for me, help every area of your life.
Yeah. I mean, I love what you said about how it happens fast. And I know sometimes with using just standard therapy, that can take a little bit longer, and adding tools in or using tools like tapping is powerful. And it's very easy to be able to do and to follow. It's not as overwhelming as some other practices might be. Can you tell us, like, for those who don't know exactly like what the heck tapping or EFT is, like, can you just break down what it is? And we know why it's amazing, but like, what is it?
Absolutely. So the formal name is EFT, Emotional Freedom Techniques, and now everybody calls it tapping or EFT tapping. And what we're actually doing is using our fingertips to tap on acupuncture points or acupoints on the face and the body. And when we do that, we enter into the meridian system, the ancient Chinese medicine meridian system, where circuitry is and where the electricity in our body flows. And some people say, electricity, what do you mean? Well, if you have an EKG or an ECG, we're totally made up of electricity. And our heart responds that way and our brain responds that way. So we have this electricity, and what happens is it gets stuck. It gets stuck, it gets turned the wrong direction. We have roadblocks. And what we want to do is literally tap into, and figuratively get into that system and clear out the blocks. I'm in New York City, and I say to people, it's like gridlock. Right. In New York City, if you can't get, down Fifth Avenue, you can't get up Sixth Avenue because something's, when there's a parade or the UN is in session. So it's like gridlock. And all we need to do is clean that out. But the other piece of it that's so important is we're purposely focused on an issue that concerns us. So we bring up the file, right? And that activates the fight or flight response. If you bring up something that stresses you out, you start, on a very small level to get connected to the fight or flight in your amygdala, your brain. And then we pair that, opening the file that we're worried about, with the tapping, which calms down your fight or flight response. And that's why it's so rapid, because, they spent years without research and just saying, I don't know, it works. I don't know, the doctor said it works. I don't know, my therapist said it works. Now all the research is in, which is really fun. So we know it works. We know what we're doing. We're calming down that response, the stress response in the brain.
I think it's really helpful for certain personality types to have that science-backed information, because it helps them say, okay, I'm not just wasting my time, or this isn't just woo-woo or whatever. Some people really, I'm not one of those people, by the way. I'm like, I don't care if it works, it works. But there are people who are more skeptical, and like having the data and the research is really helpful for them. Can you just give us some examples too, before we go to the next topic, of why we would tap? Like, what are the biggest things that you've helped people with, as far as like, because you did say, like, take a specific thing that you're working on and use it?
Well, in my practice, I started with addictions work. So I did a lot of weight loss and addictions and quit smoking. And then I moved, and then I learned a lot about trauma work that gets lodged into our nervous system and our brain. And then I became the abundance person, where people come to me and say, I have fear of success, fear of failure. I'm getting in my own way. I'm sabotaging. So people come to me for that, and they say, I know I want to do better or get better or, have more success in my life, but clearly, look over here, I'm getting in my own way. What's going on? We ask a series of questions and try to get to what's the real issue there. Now, along the way, of course, our path is dotted with many issues, right? Isn't it? Many people think, oh, it's just one thing, but things happen to us. We have experiences. Someone yelled at us in sixth grade and told us not to, stand up in front of the class and laugh or say a speech or whatever. A lot of things happen to us in our family and our school system. And as a result, it leaves residue where the next time we want to do something that's exciting, we get afraid. You could really boil it down and just work on your fears. But it's great for symptoms. It's great for the memory of an event that's troublesome for you. It's great for limiting beliefs. But we could really make everything into a fear and say, well, what's going on? Well, I'm not stepping out because I'm afraid of success. I'm afraid to shine. I'm afraid to be visible. Or I'm afraid if I do and it doesn't work, I'll feel like a failure. Those are really the big umbrellas that I work with now. And again, people can come to me for anything, and we end up finding out why the individual is in their own way, why they're blocking themselves, what's going on. So, but you do need a distressing issue challenge that you want to clear. You don't just tap while you're walking down the street or watching TV. You want to be focused so that you can see the results and say, wow, now that I tune into that issue again, let's say someone's upset about a meeting with their boss next week. They tune in again and go, what just happened? Well, we tapped. Yeah, but I still have the meeting next week. Yes, you do, but you're no longer, in that hyper vigilant state about it, which may have been based on an old meeting with your boss or may have been based on something totally different 10 years ago. That makes you anxious about meeting with someone at work, etc. You follow what I'm trying to say. So we want the distressing event or the distressing concern that you've got, and then do the tapping while we're there. So I do that a lot with anybody that comes in, anybody who are my clients, and I do it in groups too. People are constantly saying, I'm in my own way, and I get it. I know I'm in my own way.
I feel like that's why it's helpful to work with somebody when you're tapping and trying to figure out things, because you can sort of be able to pull out, okay, like it's so funny that you say you stood up in 6th grade and, you were in the way or whatever. Like, isn't it funny how things like that literally, you're like, who cares? Like, that's such not a big deal, but it is still inside of us. It's still there. It lingers. To have somebody to help you pull that out so you can move on and clear it is, I think, so helpful.
Well, it lingers because everything that happens to us, good and bad, is recorded in our nervous system, which is why so many clinicians and coaches and practitioners and podcast listeners and podcast people have to work on themselves, because we're hearing a lot of stories. We're hearing a lot of stress and distress in the country, in our world, in our community. You've got kids, with the kids at school. There's a lot going on. And we can record it even if it's not ours. Even if we're witnessing something, they call it secondary trauma. If we're witnessing something troubling to somebody else, that can lodge in our nervous system too. So think of that. Even the first, 15, 20 years of our lives, we've built up a lot of challenges and concerns. So it's very important to keep working on yourself and keep saying, well, what is that? What is going on? Why would I be afraid to shine when I keep taking all these courses so that I can shine and do better in my business? Why am I blocking myself?
Yeah, like, why am I so stuck? It's interesting what you said about the secondary trauma, because that is a good reminder to protect what you're exposed to, especially if you're a very empathetic person and you I'm like that. I take things on. I could see something and it could stick with me for the rest of my day or week, and I'll just be like so bogged down by it. It's so heavy. So you have to kind of, if you're like that, or anyone, I guess, protect what you're being exposed to online. Like, there's certain things that I've seen online that have been completely against my will. And I'm like, I wish I did not just scroll upon that.
Exactly. They're happening all over the place. And our job, every individual's job is to say, am I taking good care of myself? Am I really doing self-care practices that work? Or am I staying up too late scrolling? And am I, not eating the right foods? Am I around people who are a little bit toxic, right? There's, everyone's always looking for the big, huge whopper of a problem. Sometimes it's not that. It's not the big car accident or the big time you got fired. Sometimes it's a lot of little things that build up in our system, again, in our nervous system and our immune system. That's what we need to clear. Those are the things we need to keep washing out and flushing out of our systems.
I love that. That's so important. That's so good. I want to talk about something that you talk about. I want to ask you about gratitude. And tell me why gratitude is such a superpower. Why is gratitude so important, especially with the work that you do and like how you help your clients? Why is it so important?
Okay. So let me just say a little bit of background. So in tapping, you focus on the problem. That's all you have to do. Tap, tap, tap. The problem goes down, down, down. And naturally, very positive feelings come up as a result as you're, lessening the negative. And then a whole group of people came along, law of attraction people, and said, you can't focus on the problem. What are you doing? So they started saying only positive words while you were tapping, and they don't have a place to land if you're still upset, right? The positive just kind of bounces off, like when people do affirmations and they think, that didn't stick very long. And I started using gratitude with the tapping, but only after you've done a couple of rounds and moved things through. And then you can do gratitude tapping. And what happened is I was writing this new book called, as you know, and I did research on what gratitude really does for you, because everybody talks about gratitude. Everybody says they have a gratitude list. Oh, I did my gratitudes last night. And I did the research and it was shocking. I knew it's good for you and feels good, but I didn't know it could lower your cortisol levels by 23%.
Wow.
It lowers it improves your sleep, both the duration and the quality of your sleep. It improves job satisfaction when your bosses express appreciation. So there's all these studies about when someone is consistent with a gratitude practice, it's not just, oh, that feels good and it's a good idea. It's serious science. So I combine that, because I've been doing gratitude, and I go through my story of why I wasn't grateful or why I wasn't using gratitude, what got in my way. And then the statistics for tapping are also wild. It's for PTSD, for anxiety, for depression. So both tools combined, I just think is just explosive. But I'm talking about in the book about gratitude being the superpower that we're all talking about. And some people are consistent. I won't be, some people are really good at it. I was not. A lot of people are doing it in a very surface way. I feel grateful. And they're not really getting into the feeling, which is what changes the chemistry, changes your cortisol, changes your hormonal system, changes what goes on. It lowers your risk of hypertension. Hypertension is like one of those diseases up there with cancer. Like, it's one of the biggest ones in our world. Mm-hmm. So it lowers all these medical challenges, improves all these issues in your life, lowers your stress response, which is what everything's really about. Everything goes back to how are we reacting physiologically and emotionally to the stressors that naturally show up in our lives. That's what we have to deal with. So I was researching and I got all this gratitude, all these statistics. I was like, oh, now I really want to write the book. Now I really want to combine these two. As I say, I do it in my practice. I do gratitude after we focused on what's going on. And then, so I teach people how to do that together so they can get the combination of tapping, reducing your stress, lowering the problem, and then this just turbocharging it with gratitude.
I love that. That does sound like it would turbocharge it. So what if you're, there are people listening and I've had days like this myself, and it just like feels hard to harness that. Like, if you're not in a good headspace and you're like, it's hard to feel gratitude. Like, what is there to be grateful for? Like, you're having a bad day or whatever. How do you get to a place where you can snap out of that and go to the feeling and not just the surface level? Like you said, I've done that too, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to write my things down that I'm grateful for, but I don't think I was really feeling it as much as I don't think I was lowering my cortisol.
Yes.
I think I was just doing something to check it off a list.
Yes. Well, it's a great question. Sometimes we have to have a state change. Sometimes I walk around the park. Sometimes I do a little meditation. Sometimes I, do the dishes. Sometimes I do something first instead of forcing myself to get into it, because that doesn't really work. And my go-to tool is tapping. So if I'm having a bad day and feel crabby and don't want to do my gratitude, well, I do tapping on that. What's going on? What's pulling my attention? And then eventually you feel so much better. It's like, well, I can do my gratitude. Oh, I can. And then you really do feel it. It's the forcing, it doesn't work. Someone like trying to meditate,
Yes.
It doesn't really work. But it's not that it's not a challenge. I address that a lot, that, I understand when you feel crummy is the very time you should do gratitude, and it's the very time you don't want to, right? So you've got to support.
Yeah. For sure. It's like, that's when you need it the most. And I feel like when it comes to gratitude, I think a lot of people tune out when they hear it because it's a saturated word. I mean, obviously for good reason. But there are some buzzwords that you hear and people I can just, people tune out. They're like, oh, but when you also you can lower your cortisol by 23%. Like, that goes back to the data, the research that's here. Well, that's a little bit more motivating. Yeah. Me and my girlfriend were talking about our cortisol, and we have some issues with that. And knowing this, I think she and I would be way more willing and eager to really take that serious, because this is medical, health stuff that it affects.
Health stuff. And can you imagine sleeping better? So the first thing I cleared on myself with tapping years ago was insomnia. Well, if you clear your insomnia, your health gets better, your eating habits are better, your ability to focus and concentrate is better, all the health markers get better. It's like, So, and gratitude does it too. Gratitude can improve the duration and quality of your sleep. That's a big deal. It's insomnia is an epidemic in our world
Yeah.
because worry is, because anxiety and worry is.
I have a question about that. So, because I've dealt over the summer, I dealt with a little bit of insomnia, and it's very painful to not be able to sleep
Yeah.
for many reasons. When you have someone, or even with you, with your personal experience, is it something that you would recommend? Hey, I know I might have an issue with my sleep tonight. I'm going to do it before I go to bed. Or is it something like, okay, I woke up in the middle of the night. Here I am. This is a perfect time to do the tapping, or is it both? Like, what do you recommend for somebody dealing with sleep issues?
Well, the reason I would do it ahead of time is the same way I handle people who are having terrible cravings. Like, well, don't wait till you're on your way to Dunkin' Donuts because you will not do the tapping. So if you wake up in the middle of the night and you already got monkey mind, you may not do the tapping. So insomnia comes from two main areas. One is constant worry, stress, worry, things are going on, things are on your mind. And sometimes it's deeply held childhood trauma. And that is a little different, the way to treat that. So mine was anxiety. And what I was doing when I was a hypnotist, I had just learned tapping. And people were coming in to me as a hypnotist with anxiety issues and smoking issues and weight loss issues. They said, that's it. You're my last resort. You got to help me. And I would say to them, I just learned this new technique for stress relief. Can I give it to you for 5 minutes at the end of the session? And if you don't like it, I'll give you the 5 minutes. There's no risk. I wasn't tapping on my insomnia. I was tapping on their anxiety, using the words, tapping on myself, because I teach people how to do it. They mirror it. And I'm doing this. And that's when my insomnia went away, because I was addressing anxiety. Mine was anxiety born. Up at night, I can't control this. What's going on at work? What's happening in my family? Just worried and feeling as if staying up and being worried is a good idea, right? That's what people with insomnia think. So you've got to address what's keeping you up at night. That's the best question. I can't go to sleep. I'm toss and turn. Okay, what is keeping you up at night? And then you target that with the tapping. So I would do it ahead. To answer your question, I would do it ahead of time every day or every night. And then when you wake up in the middle of the night, go to the points. You don't have to get up and do the whole formal series of statements. Just get up and tap, or just turn over and tap, because this immediately calms down what's been opened in your brain, which is, what does the boss need tomorrow? I forgot to sign the form for my kid in school. The dog needs to go to the vet. The uh-ohs are what keeps us up at night. So tap on that. And you might have another technique where you write something down so you don't forget it for the next morning. But once you calm the body down, once you calm the brain down, your body's very tired. You're ready for sleep. So I've done it sometimes where I can barely get through a whole round, and it's the monkey mind that's keeping us up, not the body. Now, if there are bodily issues, if there's a physical pain or something else, that's then another target for the tapping.
Okay. The most frustrating is when it is something simple like the kids' form. Like, who cares? Do it in the morning. You just want to tell your brain, please shut up. Like, I can't be bothered with this right now. But my brain does that. And mine is an anxiety foundation as well. And that's why I think this is such a great tool for me, because and that's why I've been using it so much, because I do suffer with that. And knowing that I suffer with that, and it's okay. And like just figuring out how to use these tools, like it's so huge. So my next question, speaking of like, there's these great tools now. We know about gratitude. We know about tapping. How can we be consistent with this? Like, what are blocks that you see with people that you work with? Because now we know the facts. Like, if you're listening to this podcast, like, let's go. This is amazing stuff. What happens when we get excited and then we stop?
Yes, it's so important. So the blocks are really, do we want to feel better? Is there a risk to feeling better? What's the downside if we do our gratitude and our tapping every day and we really start to feel, look, sound, and be better? What's the challenge with that? Because that's the sabotage question, right? So it's the same thing as something else. Do you do your walking every day? Do you do your mindfulness? Do you do your meditation? Why would you not do these techniques that are good for you? And that's the good question. Why wouldn't I? Because I'm too busy? No. Right? You're getting in your own way for some reason. And maybe you don't want to be that successful. Maybe you don't want to stand out with your group of friends because everybody's complaining and everybody likes the currency of what's going poorly, whatever it is. But once you find that out, then you no longer need to keep a lid on yourself, and you don't need to block something that is so obviously, not by us, but by clinical research, scientific standards, they both work. Why would you not do that? And it's the question. Why would you not do that? Why would you not want to feel better? And I go through my personal story about how my container was so full of family stuff. I didn't know I was supposed to do gratitude. No one told me that. No counselor ever said, why don't you do a gratitude list? So I wasn't even in the world but of gratitude, but I was so focused on my family and problems happening that there wasn't room for it anyway. Then low self-esteem. When you have low self-esteem, what do? You run around taking care of everybody else. Oh, I'm not valuable. So then you don't put aside time for whatever practices are good for you that would make you feel better. Then there's the real sabotage, which is, I don't want to shine. I don't really want to stand out. I don't want to feel that much better. I'm more comfortable feeling okay. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what you really have to get to answer your question. Why wouldn't we do it? And how do we get ourselves to do it once we found out the incredible research?
Right. And I think it's funny. You do have to go deeper, because on the surface, no one is going to say, I don't want to have joy. I don't want to feel better. No one is going to say that. But truly, like, if you're being honest with yourself and you dig deeper, that could be the real thing. You know, I guess it's more comfortable a lot of the times to stay the same because it's so familiar. And changing is work. It is more work. You know, you're going to do a gratitude list and to take time to tap. It is more work. It's easier to get on your phone and scroll and just not worry about waking up 10 minutes earlier or whatever it might be. It is easier. I don't think it's easier to feel terrible, but those are why we have to question those thoughts that we have, I feel like. And I want to talk to you about joy, because you talk a lot about that in your book. And I think, and we kind of touched upon this, but, you know, for those who are having a hard time accessing it, especially if they're feeling like that, you know, I really resonated with what you said about that secondary trauma. I see a lot of this online, you know, this is happening in the world and everybody is like so upset and catastrophizing everything. And it's really affecting how they don't even want to feel joy. They don't even want to, they feel like all they have to do is just be upset because of all the things that they think are happening. And it's like, maybe who am I to like feel joy? It's not fair to others or whatever. And trying to be a good person, but they're really blocking their own happiness a lot of the times. And so if you're trying to access joy, and if not, even if you're trying, why should we in the first place?
Right. Well, one of the things I would say is that's a tappable issue. It doesn't feel fair for me to feel happy when everybody else is suffering. So when we do tapping, you want to get a very clear target, an emotion, a limiting belief, a symptom in your body, or the memory of a bad negative event, right? Well, this is a real tappable issue. It doesn't feel fair. Why should I feel joy, you know, when other people are hurting? Does that make any sense? We really have to question that, because us being more poor or less happy or more upset isn't helping anybody. Go do something. If you want to contribute, go do something. Help your neighborhood, help your community, send a check, do what you need to do. But being glum and upset isn't helping anybody. Now, that's different than someone who's having a real nervous system reaction and response. That means you're dysregulated and you need help. We can't help anybody else until we help ourselves. We must be able to calm ourselves down, get into the nervous system and say, I'm okay, I'm safe right now, before we can help other people. So one of the things I say to people is remind them, we're wired for safety. We're not wired for success. Right? So what is it that makes you feel safe about keeping a lid on yourself? Oh, I shouldn't be joyful because my neighbor's upset. Is that helping your neighbor? You're not even talking to your neighbor. I shouldn't be joyful because somebody in another state or another country is suffering. How is that helpful? You know, our vibration, when it gets higher, we get better ideas, we have better connections, and we have better resources, literally emotionally, to help other people. My entire world is about helping other people. It doesn't do them any good if I go down a terrible negative slide, right? But if I need to go down the terrible negative slide, I reach out for help or I reach out for my tools. So it's really about taking care of ourselves in the midst of, sure, there's always things going on, always things going on. So it's not about being joyful all the time or when other people are upset. It's about, well, what's the balance here? What makes sense if someone else is suffering in your life? How can you help them? Right? Do you join them? Do you get happy yourself? Why are you restricting your joy? I was talking to a client the other day and I said, what's the downside of having more joy constantly in your life to really be joyful? And she said, oh, other people will come and tell me why I shouldn't be joyful. I thought, oh, that is such an interesting answer. I couldn't have come up with that. That was her family, her life. And I think we all have reasons. And that's the best question. What's the downside of being happier more often in your life? Somebody else will be upset with me. What's the downside of being more successful? Somebody else will be envious or jealous. What's the downside of really feeling grateful? Someone will say I'm got my head in the sand and I'm not looking at the real problems in the world. Then that becomes an issue and a challenge that you need to work on.
It's so funny too, because how those thoughts can hold so many of us back. And at the end of the day, who cares what would we tell our kids? You ever tell your kid, well, what would your friends say if you thrived? Of course not. But for us, we take that, what would others say, the judgment, so serious that we would actually limit our dreams, our happiness, our goals. It just feels, when you break it down like that, hopefully I'm sure a lot of your clients get the epiphany of, well, that's not good enough. That's not a good enough reason for me to not do that. And do you have suggestions for people who are, realizing, okay, this is something I want to have more in my life? Where do you start? What if you've been, this might resonate with somebody listening. And for me too, a mom who's been with her kids and her whole life is about her kids and being there for them and their sports and their activities. And then all of a sudden you look around and you're like, what do I have that makes me happy? Obviously our kids make us happy, but I had to take a look around and with my life and say, okay, well, I need to add some things back into my life that make me happy, that make me joyful. Yeah. So how do you help your clients with that?
If you're inspired to do that, start building something for yourself, literally one step at a time. So then you make a commitment. So my commitment is I walk every day, I meditate every day, and I tap every day. I've done other tools. I've done Qigong and many other things, but those are my go-to. But I'm committed to them, rain or shine. And people say, Carol, you've been a therapist forever. Why do you keep tapping? It's like, because I'm asking my clients to tap, right? And I have a schedule to do it. I want to make sure I do it every day because it makes me feel better. And then it builds this resource where when something upsetting is happening, I can go back to that, or my baseline goes up. And when your baseline raises, you have better ideas for what you might want to do. I mean, you've got this beautiful podcast, but someone who doesn't have anything besides what they were focused on in their life, now you can think about it. Now you can try things out. Now you can say, hey, I bet I'd be pretty good at that. Or I'm afraid of failure, so I need to tap on that. Or maybe I'll take a lesson or a class in this other area. So you have to want to build something for yourself, and then tiny, tiny steps. Do not try to be the best at something in 3 months, right? It doesn't work for any human being, right? So when you feel committed to something, when you feel inspired and committed, you do the work. And the work is not 6 hours a day. The work is 15 minutes of tapping a day, or 20 minutes of reading up and researching an area of work that you'd like to go into, or the work is doing a 20-minute walk around the neighborhood. We're not talking about changing your entire life. Little bits is how everybody improves and changes. It's how I did it. I've always done it that way because I always had to have a job. I didn't have some other option. I had to do little bits around the edges. Then you feel committed to it, and then there is no way you would skip it. So I usually wear this very inexpensive, cheap, this watch that tells me whether I've done my tapping or not that day, right? And I do my meditation first thing in the morning, and I do my walking in the morning. So that's how I know. And they're not just checked off. There's I'm taking care of myself because I value myself. And when I value myself, I model that for all my nieces and nephews who I've just been with, right? And then I can model that for my clients, and I can help them, because when you feel better, you're a better witnesser. You can hold the space for other people. And it doesn't matter what profession you're in. You don't have to be in my profession. You're better as a teacher, as a clinician, as a mom, as a sports person, right? As a IT person, you're better when you can hold the space, and you hold the space better when you're taking care of yourself.
I think this would be such a great tool, speaking of your nieces and nephews, for kids.
Oh, it's incredible.
Have you shown your nieces and nephews tapping?
Yes. I have, and a lot of people are doing it for kids and school systems because it's so effective for them to get out of that reactive. They're no different than we are. The kids get reactive, but teachers and the head of the Y and whatever, the coaches look at it differently than when an adult, somehow when adults are overreactive, they get away with it differently, but kids are shut down right away. The kid's just feeling angry, hurt, frustrated, or upset. The wonderful technique for kids. Wonderful. And yes, I've shown my nieces and nephews that. Yeah.
That's so cute. I think it's so amazing. I love it. Well, please tell us about your new book, because I know people are going to want to check it out and, make this part of their life.
Good. Thank you. So the book is called Yes, Thank You, Tapping into the Superpower of Gratitude. And what I do is I go through all the research about gratitude that I found. And then I tell my story about what got in my way. My container was full with family problems, the self-esteem issue, and then bumping into the sabotage problem in my life is like, whoa, what am I doing? And having to learn how to ask the right questions. And then I use tapping to help you get out of those challenges. Is it stress? Is it guilt about saying no? Is it concern about what other people think? So I do have all these tapping sequences in the end as part of your solution to it. And what I want to do is give, and I can give it to you now, or you can put it in the notes, give people a way to go get the free videos. You don't have to buy the book. I'd love it if you bought the book. That would be awesome. But you don't have to. You can go right to the videos. You want me to give that to you now, or?
You know what? Why don't you email it to me, and then I'll just, so it's so easy, I'll link it in the show notes, and they just pop in and click a link, and it'll be easier.
So the book helps people build that momentum of, I didn't know this about gratitude. I didn't know about the science. I didn't, builds that. And then I just tell my personal story. Why was I in my own way? Why was I so focused on family problems that I didn't even know doing gratitude was a good idea? How did I miss that? Well, when you're very focused on challenges and problems, you miss a lot, right? And then the gratitude. And then it also has a 30-day gratitude challenge in there with EFT and with special law of attraction lists and stuff. So it's a lot of fun, and it's incredibly effective. That's what I love. I love that it's empowering and has changed my life.
I cannot wait to read it. And I love a challenge, walking challenge right now, where I have to walk 15,000 steps a day.
Ooh.
And I wouldn't be doing 15,000 steps if I wasn't in the challenge. And I think now, after like 2 weeks, it's pretty habit. It's a habit for me. It's easy. But I think when you're starting off and realizing, okay, this is really important. Like, I want to make an effort towards doing this. A challenge is such a good way to kind of make it a habit for me. Like, I thrive on a challenge. So I will definitely be doing that challenge. And anyone listening, go and get Carol's book. She's so amazing. I will link the book and the videos in the show notes. This is just like such life-changing stuff. So I hope that my listeners really take advantage, go buy the book and enjoy this, because it is so helpful. It works in so many different ways. So thank you, Carol, for coming back. I love talking with you. This has been amazing.
Thank you, Jess. Been a pleasure. Nice to be with you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.